What if Deku joined Team JPDE? Chapter 44. Aftermath and Recovery. David woke up in the infirmary on the lab ship. How long was I out? David asked. Just a few hours. You collapsed as soon as you met up with Penny. Kept a hell of a hold on Evelyn even while passed out, though, Titania said. How? How is she? How's everyone? David asked. Everyone's alive, Titania said. But not fine, David said. Well, there was you with the complete aura exhaustion and all the injuries you got, to start with. Then Jacqueline and Izuku. Jack has more broken bones than internal organs, right now. And her arms are really fucked up, Titania said. What? David asked. Let's see, what did Mom say, exactly? You know how she can absorb kinetic energy, no? Well, she did that for too long, so the amount was too much for her body to release safely. Izuku, however, isn't as fucked up as Jack is. He still has a lot of broken bones though. In fact, his right arm looks to be in the same state as Jack's arms. That last blow they did was really powerful. We could feel the aftershock and the air currents from our position, but they would have been dead in the water, Titania said. How did they get away? David asked. Thanks to us, Janara said. Janara and Amber then entered the infirmary. Janara. What are you? David said, starting to cough. Bringing you a glass of water, to begin with. I could hear your rasp all the way outside, Janara said. Why don't you dress up and relax, David? We can talk more later, Amber said. David was soon out of his cot and changed. I thought you couldn't leave Peak, David said. I never said that. I just never wanted to, Janara said. So you left it unattended? To come help us? David asked. Huff. First, it's not unattended. My creatures are there, and the field is still intact, you know. Second, after what happened to me, if they were really with the guy who owns my city, all deals are off. And third, this all happened because you helped me, so. I just couldn't, Janara said, blushing. It's alright, Janara. We get it, Amber said. Big Sis is proud of you, Titania said. Ah. You're younger than me, Janara said. Oh wow. I really am, Titania said. How did you find us? David asked. I planted some of my creatures on Evelyn's clothes before she left. I noticed something was wrong with her, Janara said. How is she? David asked. Cheer up, David. You did it, Titania said. You mean? David said. According to the professors, she drove out any and all foreign auras out of her body and her aura structure is intact. She's alive and she'll recover, Amber said. David then began to cry. Oh, come on, don't cry, Titania said. I'm sorry, I can't believe this, David said. Believe it? She's alive and really healthy for the first time in years. And it's only thanks to you, Amber said. No. Thanks to all of us, David said. I didn't do much, Titania said. Exactly. You could have fought back against Evelyn. You didn't, David said. Titania blushed. Big Sis is proud of you, Janara said. You did not just say that, Titania said. Can I go see them? David asked. Evelyn, Izuku and Jack are all being kept sedated as they recover. They told me it'd be better if you waited until they woke on their own, Janara said. I see. Then I should go thank They told you? David asked. That's what I said, Janara said. You mean? David asked. Yes. They saw her. Everyone on board did, Amber said. I figured that'd be a problem, but that ship hailed when I crashed my Draco into that grim, Janara said. At least try not to use your scary eyes, alright, David said. At the safe house. See, Bob. In the end you made the right choice. I'm the better vessel. Always have been. Oh, I know. Refusal is always hard to accept. But hey. Think of the upside. Now that your aura is no longer split between two people, Andrea said. You knew about this, Bella said. Yes, Weza said. This is the entire reason you made us recruit that freak, Bella said. It's the same reason why each one of us is here, Bella. We're all unique in our own way and we play a part in the plan. Andrea and his guest have always been one of the options, but, alas, I never managed to find where their sweet other half had ended up. Imagine my surprise when it just waltzed into our lives like this, Weza said. And now that you have a complete piece. What's the next step, Thilla said. Glad you asked, Thilla. Simply put, we keep creating situations that push David and his friends to their limits, over and over, increasing the chances of him having to expend the flame's aura. But that may be harder than I first initially thought with Izuku around. But on that note, I think it's high time you do the honors again, Howard Weza said. Music for my ears, Boss Howard said. Back on the airship. David couldn't sleep, so he decided that he would go and thank everyone who came to help. You'd make an excellent addition to the force, Seal said. I agree. But I'm going to pass, May said. You're going to pass on an official invitation to join the Atlas Specialists Force immediately after graduation, Seal asked. Yes, May said. But why, Seal asked. Joining a military organization would limit my freedom of movement. There's something I need to do, May said. Freedom of movement. Are you, Seal asked. Not everyone values everything the same way, Seal David said. Glad to see you up and about, David, May said. Happy to be, May. Hi, Seal David said. Welcome back. I guess apologies are in order, Seal said. Apologies. Actually, I was here to thank you for your help, David said. Thing is, I didn't think you could do it. When I heard you were going after Evelyn alone, my thoughts pretty much amounted to welp, he's dead, Seal said. You were almost right. I almost killed myself, David laughed. You? What? But why would you, Seal said. I almost ran out of aura, so I was considering a drastic measure, David said. Are you insane? You're telling me you almost. Did you even consider, for a moment, what this was going to do to your teammates? Oh, hey, Evelyn, David killed himself to save your life, Seal said. Only midway, David said. I'm feeling bad myself right now because, if I hadn't told you, I'm the whole reason you know that was a possibility to begin with. Can you imagine how absolutely destroyed the people around you would have been, how destroyed their relationships with each other would have been? And what you were going to do to the one you oh so heroically were going to sacrifice yourself for? The kind of guilt she would have had to carry for the rest of her life, Seal said. David said. You stupid, impulsive, selfish, Seal said. Seal. I think that's quite enough, May said. Please excuse me, Seal said. Seal then left. You look surprised, May said. I mean, I had already realized that. But I didn't think she cared so much, David said. I don't know about her circumstances, but she obviously does. And I agree with her views. A person does not exist in a vacuum, David. Everything you do affects the people around you, especially your death. Once you are gone, you're at peace, you've achieved your personal satisfaction. But those left behind may never recover. So do not ever think of yourself as expendable ever again, no matter how much you love your friends, May said. I just wanted to protect them, David said. I know. But you know what they say about the road to hell, May said. David and May then parted ways, and the David began to look for Arslan and Reese. Nothing better than a shower after a day spent in dirt and grim guts, Reese said. Grim don't have guts. Also, lower your voice. The injured and everyone else are trying to recover, Arslan said. Oh shoot, you're right, I'm sorry, Reese said. I'm honestly amazed she's still so energetic, considering the day we've just had, David said. David. How are you feeling, Arslan asked. A bit groggy but fine. I was making the rounds, thanking everyone, David said. No thanks needed. It was a pleasure, Arslan said. And we had to help to repay Izuku for his help, Reese said. That is also true, Arslan said. And orphans got to stick together, anyway. Rules or not, Reese said. On that note, I wanted to ask. Jack mentioned that you're all like agents for the headmaster of the 4 major academies, David said. Pretty much, yes. Me and Reese answer to Headmaster Leolian Heart of Haven Academy, Arslan said. Old softy. You should see his facial hair, it just makes you wanna, Reese said, quite loudly. Arslan glared at Reese. Yes, indoor voices. Sorry, Reese said. So, what exactly does it entail? Being an orphan, David asked. We get help with personal situations and in exchange. Well, from what I hear, it depends on the headmaster. The headmaster of the Atlas Academy, General Ironwood, is mostly on the lookout for children showing promise on the scientific side of things. The headmaster of Shade, in Vacuo, grooms survivalist, people who can help settlements thrive in harsh living conditions, Arslan said. Leo's group has always been about kicking as much ass as possible. Combat specialist extraordinaire, Reese said. Arslan glared at Reese again. Oh, I cannot shut up, can I, Reese said. As for Headmaster Ozpin, I don't know much about the operations of his orphans. From what I gathered from our headmaster, Ozpin only has 5 of them under his command. Also, he seems to only look for children with rare semblances, Arslan said. Which reminds me. I wonder what's going to happen to Evelyn, now, Reese asked. What do you mean, David asked. Well, Jack told us about what happened with Evelyn and the Grim inside her. Said it was only fair so that we knew why we were getting in this kind of shenanigans, Reese said. Yeah, I agree, David said. Anyway. If her semblance was the result of this Grim's aura, now that the aura is gone. So is the semblance, no, Reese asked. David and Arslan had not thought of this possibility. Shutting up now, Reese said. Finally, David went to go thank Ruby for her help. I'm sorry, I never meant to eavesdrop. All those times, Ruby said. It's fine, Ruby. It's just. It's something we should discuss once David is up, and Penny said. David then entered the lab. Hey, girls. I'm glad to see you again, David said. Penny and Ruby began to cry. David. I'm so glad, Penny cried. Me too, Ruby cried. Oh, wow, come on, I'm alright. I was just exhausted, David said. But the risk you've taken, I still can't believe we're all going back together, Penny said. David, I'm sorry, Ruby said. And what's this about being sorry, now, David asked. Because, Ruby said. David. Ruby happened to, by accident, hear the conversation we had in our room after the fight with Howard, Penny said. Oh, David said. I didn't mean to, and, I want you to know that I don't mind you being a rock human. Or whatever, Ruby said. I know you don't, Ruby, David said. And? You're not mad, Ruby asked. Why would I be? But I think it's better if you hear the whole story instead of just bits and pieces. Also because there are some new developments, David said. You mean you spoke with the Flame again, Penny asked. Ruby was then told the whole story about David's origins and the Flame. Oh, wow, that's a lot to take in, Ruby said. We got it piece by piece ourselves and it still feels overwhelming, at times. Anyway, this latest development explains why they are so lax in coming after me, now David said. Having the flame exhaust himself trying to help you works just as fine as kidnapping you does, Penny said. My theory is that they can't just kill me. There's something specific they need to do to the flame, and, with enough aura, he could probably oppose it, David said. So they want to tire him out. And then Ruby said. Yeah, David said. We don't have the option to stop going forward, do we? Penny asked. No. But don't worry, Penny. I'm no longer that weak, am I? And you four have never been. And we only got more friends as time went on, David said. You're right, Penny said. Right. We can do it together. And I can ask my team to help, too, whenever you need, Ruby said. What? I'm sure they will be up to help if I explain. Not everything, of course, but Ruby said. No, rather. Ruby, I was wondering, David said. Have you had a chance to tell your team where you went for almost 2 days? On a school night, too? Penny asked. Young is going to kill me, Ruby said. After finally thanking everyone for their help, David then went to finally get some sleep. You are dead, Ruby Rose Young yelled over the scroll. Oh, come on, Young. It was. I just, acted, Ruby said. Without thinking. You didn't know what you were getting into. It could have been a suicide mission, for all you knew, Weiss yelled. Well, Ruby said. That's it, you're grounded, Weiss yelled. What? You can't ground me, I'm your leader, Ruby said. You're right, she can't. I can, Young yelled. Blake, back me up here, Ruby said. I'm so disappointed in you, Blake said. Not you too. Traitor. This is insubordination, Ruby yelled. Now march yourself right to bed. You're lucky the headmaster told us. We pretty much overturned the school looking for you, Young yelled. And you're apologizing to Team JNPR, too. They were beside themselves with worry, too, Weiss said. Okay. Good night, Ruby sighed. Ruby then ended the call. That could have gone better, Ruby said. It absolutely could have not, Miss Rose Ironwood said. And that thing about sleep sounds like quite the good idea. Mind making sure she tucks in for the night? Penny Enrico asked. Not at all, Papa. I think I'll tuck in, too, Penny said. In a different cot than Mr. Dik Begis, I hope, Enrico said. Papa. David is dead tired. Obviously, I am not going to inconvenience him despite my current desire for closure, Penny said. As long as we're clear, Enrico said. Don't worry, Penny. We can sleep together, if you want, Ruby said. Oh, that would be lovely. And maybe we could have a customary pillow fight, Penny said. I think I'm gonna pass on that, Ruby said. Ruby then left the lab. I wasn't going to go all out, Penny said. Penny then followed after Ruby. A pillow fight, Ironwood said. She's certainly grown, hasn't she, Enrico said. Yes. Hard to believe this was the same girl who first thought people walked on their hands, Ironwood said. A girl, you say, Enrico laughed. The pillow fight makes it kind of hard to ignore. But more than that, her self-awareness. Even for little, incorrect things like this. She never forgets who she is, what she can do. How at the same time she's less and more than people around her. I have to admit. I'm surprised at how much self-control she's displayed, considering the situation she was thrust into. I thought for sure she'd activate Senza Fili again, Ironwood said. And do you realize why she didn't, Enrico asked. Because her comrades had her back. And she trusted in them, Ironwood said. So, are you convinced, now, Enrico asked. My job is to always account for any eventuality, Enrico. But I am now convinced that Penny Polendina won't break easily, Ironwood said. And by the way, James, speaking of comrades, Enrico said. I couldn't not tell Ozpin, Enrico Ironwood said. In Ozpin's office, Ozpin was replaying a recording of Janara crashing her Draco into the Gumra. Ozpin. What are you looking for? Glinda asked. Any hint? Anything useful? Anything that will help me understand what she's doing this for? Ozpin said. It's a short clip James sent over, taken from a distance. I doubt it has much information. Ozpin, I've never seen you act like this, Glinda said. Still, it helps with my focus. How did she do this? And why? Why a small girl? Ozpin asked. It's like she wanted to make herself an apprentice, Glinda said. No, this is more like a daughter. I'd like to be alone now, Glinda. Ozpin said. Very well, Glinda said. Glinda then left. Ozpin then began to replay the recording over and over again. Friday. Day 124. Evelyn woke up in the infirmary. Welcome back, Miss Damerot, Peach said. Professor Peach. I'm sorry, Evelyn said. You should be. But not because of the reasons you're thinking of. This situation could have been avoided entirely if you had just thought of your own well-being a little more, Peach said. I see that now. I was reckless. I thought I could just soldier it through, as always. And in the end, I caused more trouble than the ones I wanted to avoid, Evelyn said. I also owe you an apology, Miss Damerot. I should have noticed something was amiss with you. Instead, I was focused on Janara. I didn't see the forest for the trees, Peach said. Yeah. I guess we both screwed up, Evelyn said. Yeah. So, what now? Peach asked. Now. I want to be better. I don't want to act like I'm alright all the time, calm and in control when I'm a bad day away from letting my insecurities screw me up. I want to be strong enough to let people take care of me when I need it. But also strong enough to be relied on. Just like Jack and Izuku, Evelyn said. That's a laudable objective. Where are you going to start from? Peach asked. Healing, I guess. How am I holding up? Evelyn asked. Well, that depends. We haven't been able to properly check while you were asleep, so. How's your eyesight? Peach asked. Huh. Well, same as. I can see. I mean, the colors are. They're right, Evelyn said. The professor's theory was correct, then. Now that all the corrupted aura has been flushed out of your system, you've started healing the effects of the forceful coexistence, starting with your eyesight, Peach said. Oh my gods. What about? Evelyn said. I have a mirror. And since you're going to need to stay under close observation for at least another day, Miss Damerot, Penny was wondering if there is anything you need from your room, Peach said. Yes. My sewing kit. And all the spare cloth you can find, Evelyn said. As the lab ship was on its final approach to Beacon, Jack called for David. So? 1 week? David asked. And plenty of painkillers. Huff. I hate being bedridden, Jack said. So? What should we do in the meanwhile? David asked. Rest, study, eat. Just relax, partner. We veered it, Jack said. We will. And if anything comes up while you rest? David asked. Hell if I know. You're in charge till I recover, so up to you, Jack said. I'm what, now? David asked. You heard me. You're in charge, Jack said. But why me? David asked. Well, I can't put Izuku in charge now, can I? Jack said. That's fair. Speaking of which, how's he doing? David asked. From what Penny's father has said, he's physically fine. But he should have woken up by now, Jack said. Maybe it's a one-for-all thing. He has unlocked a new quirk, David said. Maybe. And speaking of quirks, could you please tell Penny's father to come in here? There's something I need him to do for me, Jack said. What is it? David asked. I don't want to say anything now, we don't need anything more to worry about right now, but it has something to do with why my arms are so busted, Jack said. Okay, David said. David did as requested, and a few minutes later Professor Polendiner entered. So, Miss Ivory, David said, you wanted me to do something for you, Enrico asked. Yes. I need you to check my body for Quirk genes, Jack said. A few minutes later the lab ship arrived back at Beacon. Once again. Thanks to all your help. As temp leader of Team JPDE, I want you to know that you have made friends and allies of us. And that whatever you may need help with, at any point in time, you can count on all of us to help you through, David said. Sounds good, boss man. But don't expect special treatment if we meet in the tournament, Reese said. And hopefully, our next meeting doesn't involve fighting for our lives, Arslan said. Arslan and Reese then left. Thanks for the offer, David. I may take you up on that sooner rather than later, May said. May then left. Guess it's time for me to face the music, Ruby said. If you'd like, you can hide out in our room, Penny said. As much as I'd love that. That would only make Young angrier and lose you a door. So later, boyfriend. Girlfriend, Ruby blushed. Yes. Bye, Ruby, Penny blushed. Yeah. Bye, Rubes, David said. Ruby then left, leaving David to wonder what that was about. So, what are you going to do now, Janara, David asked. Honestly, I don't feel like going back to Peak yet. So, maybe I'll take a look around the city. Vale, wasn't it, Janara asked. Yeah. Just, David said. I know, stay hidden. Especially from this Ozpin person, Janara said. Don't fret, David. I'll be showing her around, Amber said. Count me in, too. We can make a play date out of it, Titania said. Can you stop treating me like a little kid, Janara asked. Sounds good to me, Titania. But could you take a rain check on that at least for today, David asked. Sure, why? Do you need me for something, Titania asked. Yeah, kinda need you as extra muscle, so to speak, David said. David and Titania then went to go meet Cinder, Emerald and Mercury in the garden. Sorry for the delay, David said. Good afternoon, David. You're keeping usual company, Cinder said. Look who's talking, Titania said. The hell is that thing doing here, Mercury asked. A thing, now. Rude. I got more personality than you do, daddy issues, Titania said. You're literally just me with tits, Mercury said. You've obviously not been paying attention, then, Titania said. Titania, David said. Mercury, Cinder said. Whoops. Sorry, boss man, Titania said. You actually named it, Mercury asked. That's enough, Mercury. She's alive and still kicking, deal with it, Cinder said. Yes, Mercury said. Anyway. I was referring to the fact that your team is nowhere to be seen, Cinder said. Jack, Deku and Evelyn are incapacitated, and Penny is currently attending to Evelyn, David said. Nothing too serious, I hope, Cinder said. Nothing life-threatening. But, considering what we went through, it's a miracle we're all still here. Killing your Gargantum Grim was the least of our problems, David said. Is it done, then, Cinder asked. Indeed. The Barito Forest Scumra is gone, for good. Alongside most of the forest and its grim population, David said. What, Cinder asked. Let's just say that getting out of Barito alive took some drastic measures, David said. Why? Is there a problem? I doubt something like this could have been done low profile, David said. No. No problem at all. You performed admirably. I'm satisfied with your performance, Cinder said. Glad you are. To further business, then. Good evening, David said. Yes. To further business, Cinder said. David and Titania then left. Darn it. What the hell happened? How did they do it? Cinder asked. That completely defeats the purpose of removing the Gumra Emerald said. No sense in liberating a flock of Grim if they get destroyed, Cinder said. Maybe. He was lying, Mercury said. No. No, he wasn't. And worst of all, he was deliberately baiting me to get more information. They're suspicious, now. Probably because of the timing. Curses, Cinder said. How much do they know? Is because of. Did I leave myself too open? Cinder thought. David and Titania were now in the dormitory. Nishishi, seen their faces? Titania asked. Yeah. Shock and, in Cinder's case, irritation. She was barely holding on her nerves, David said. Angry at us for being so awesome? Titania asked. And herself for not predicting we could do something like this. She's missing a lot of pieces, but still, David said. Still, why the hell would she get angry at us destroying the forest and some Grim? Nobody likes Grim, Titania said. Yeah. But some people probably have use for them, David said. Using Grim? How? Titania asked. Well, I remember from Professor Obleg's class about certain warlords capturing Grim and then unleashing them on enemies, for example. Think about it. The Gumra was pretty much confining all those Grim to the forest for its own protection. Without it around, they would have been free to roam, David said. Roam where? Titania asked. I don't know, Titania. Still, I don't think we should get in any further deals with them. Well, anyway. I'm so looking forward to sleeping in my own bed, tonight, David said. Huh, by the way, Titania said. Yeah. What is it? David asked. I was wondering. Since you have, vacant spots. And Mom's staying on the airship, Titania said. You want to sleep with us? David asked. I just don't like sleeping alone. I've never done it. Well, I may have never done it, despite remembering. I don't feel like going back to the apartment without Peach, Titania said, blushing. Sure. You can take Jack's bed, David said. What? What about Izuku's bed? Titania asked. Well. Me and Izuku share a bed, which is right next to Penny's. But I doubt I would be using it, so. Go ahead, David said. Thanks, Titania said. Don't sweat it. I guess you'd like to stay for dinner, too, David asked. Please. I burn water, Titania said. Hey, you burn water, or you burn water? David asked. Both actually, Titania said. David and Titania then entered Team JPDDE's dorm room. The guy loves his food, but he never, ever learned to, Titania said. The two then heard a drum roll. What? They both said. Ladies and gentlemen. Or, well. Metal ladies and rock gentlemen, I guess. Anyway, people who just came through the door, Penny said. Okay, Titania said. Introducing, once again, with a bust size of Penny said. Penny, will you get to the point already? Evelyn whispered. Oh, right, sorry, Anyway, introducing. Reintroducing, actually. The recovered and healthy Evelyn Damarot, Penny said. Evelyn was now stood before them in a new set of clothes, and now her hair was now white. I swear on my life, this was her idea, Evelyn said. Evelyn. You look, David said. Better, yeah. Guess that's what happens after a healthy dose of vitamin, David, Evelyn said. David began to cry. Are you going to start crying every time you see me? Evelyn asked. Evelyn, David cried. Why, Evelyn said, as David tackled her. Oh gods, never ever do that again, David said. David, I'm fine, calm down. I'm even better than before, Evelyn said. But still, I can't forget. The way you looked, how you acted, how. Don't you ever dare ignore your problems again. And I want you to tell me everything bad that happens to you. I don't want you to shoulder your stuff alone ever again, David said. I won't. And I will. I'm sorry, David. Everyone, Evelyn said. I'm so glad you're okay, David said. I swear, I'll never create trouble like this for you ever again. And hey, look at the bright side. My eyes are now fixed now, and so is my hair, Evelyn said. You mean? That's your original hair color? White, David asked. Matches with the ears, Evelyn said. And speaking of matching, nice outfit you got there, Titania said. I know, right? Oh my gods, I can finally make clothes properly, now, Evelyn said. You went all out, HM. It looks good on you, David said. It does. Which is why I insisted on a special presentation, Penny said. And speaking of special things. How's your semblance, David asked. I don't know. I haven't had time to test it. Professor Peach told me I should rest for a few days longer. And I intended to follow doctor's orders to the letter, Evelyn said. Glad to hear it. We will think about everything else starting Monday. This weekend is just for resting and recuperating, David said. Glad to hear it, leader. So, who wants to talk dinner, Evelyn asked. I do, Titania said. Saturday. Day 125. Penny was back on the airship for her weekly checkup, but first she decided to go check up on Jack and Deku. Penny entered the room to see Seal next to Deku's cot. You stupid boy. I was worried about you, you know, Seal said. Hey, Penny, Jack said, making Seal jump. Hello Jack, Seal. How are the both of you doing, Penny said. I'm doing well, for being bedridden, Jack said. How long have you been there, Seal asked. I just entered, Penny said, hiccuping. So? What are you doing here, Seal asked. I thought I would come see Jack and Izuku before Papa conducts my checkup, Penny said. I see. However, Professor Polendina will not be conducting your checkup. I will be, Seal said. Huh. But why, Penny said. He said he had something that required his full attention, so he asked me to perform your checkup, Seal said. Oh. Did he mention what it was, Penny asked. No. He said it would be better if as few people know about it as possible, for now at least. All I know is that this happened after he talked with Jack yesterday, Seal said. Penny and Seal then turned to Jack. Yes, I do know what he's doing. Actually, I requested he check something. But I won't tell you. I don't want anyone to worry until it's confirmed, Jack said. Professor Polendina and Professor Peach then burst into the room, looking very sleep-deprived. Miss Ivory. Good news, Enrico shouted. Enrico then noticed Penny and Seal. Oh, hello Penny, Seal, Enrico said. Papa. What's all the shouting about, Penny asked. Well, you see. Miss Ivory told us that Mr. Midoriya had passed his quirk, one for all was it, to her, Peach said. What, Penny said. Quirk. Don't you mean semblance, Seal asked. Professor Peach. Seal doesn't know about, Jack said. Oh. Whoops, Peach said. What don't I know? What's a quirk, Seal asked. Welp, the cat's out of the bag now, can't put it back in now, Enrico said. Seal. This is very secretive information that can't be told to anyone else. I need you to promise not to tell anyone else, Penny said. Who do you think I am? If I am ordered not to tell anyone, then I won't, Seal said. Very well then. Seal. Izuku is not from Remnant, Penny said. What? Seal shouted. Seal was then brought up to speed on everything about Deku. I need to sit down, Seal said. Seal then sat down on a chair next to Deku. So, now that Seal has been brought in on this, what this about Izuku passing one for all to Jack, Penny asked. I think it's best Miss Ivory tells you what happened, Enrico said. Everyone turned to look at Jack. After Izuku was hit by the Gamera, I went to go see if he was. Anyway, he was holding on and then told me, it's my turn. I wonder what that meant, and before I realized, he had passed one for all on to me, Jack said. And that's why she asked me to check her body for Quirk genes to confirm if she now had one for all, Enrico said. So, Jack has one for all now, and Izuku is back to being Quirkiness, Penny said. It's the opposite actually, Peach said. What, Jack? Penny and Seal said. Jack, there are no signs of Quirk genes in your body. Your genetics have not been altered at all. You don't have one for all, Peach said. That's a relief. But how's that possible, Jack asked. That's something we still need to figure out, Enrico said. Perhaps it was the method of transfer. Miss Ivory, how did he pass one for all to you, Peach said. Jack's face went red. Well, he kissed me, Jack said. He kissed you, Penny asked. Well, it was more like putting his lips to mine and coughing blood into my mouth, Jack said. That's very dangerous. He could have infected you with many diseases from his world, Seal said. Seal, there's no need to worry. Izuku has not infected anyone since arriving on Remnant, Enrico said. And Miss Ivory would have to drink a lot more of Izuku's blood to get die from it, Peach said. But the question remains. Why did it go back, Jack asked. Well, if one for all is made up of souls, then maybe they have their own will, Penny said. Izuku also mentioned that the first user's quirk he was born with was a quirk that could be passed down. Maybe it's evolved, as Izuku said that a quirk grows more powerful with time and usage, just like a semblance. So it could be that the first user's quirk now allows for the temporary transfer of one for all, Peach said. It could be, Penny said. What about a semblance, Seal said. A semblance, Jack asked. I mean, if one for all is not a semblance, then he should be able to unlock a semblance. And considering what David's semblance can do, it's not impossible for Izuku's to allow you to access one for all, Seal said. All interesting theories, but we won't be able to find out any more until Izuku wakes up. Penny, shall we proceed with your checkup, Enrico said. Absolutely not. You and Professor Peach will go to bed, you two have clearly been up all night. I will conduct Penny's checkup as originally requested, Seal said. Very well, Enrico said. Enrico and Peach then left the infirmary. Come on, Penny. We've been delayed long enough, Seal said. Of course, Penny said. Seal then left the room. Penny followed but stopped halfway. Don't worry, Jack. I won't tell the others that Izuku kissed you, Penny said. Penny, Jack yelled, blushing. Penny then left the room, leaving Jack in a blushing mess. Stupid ginger, Jack said, as she closed her eyes and went to sleep. When Jack next opened her eyes, she found herself in front of a door in a maid outfit. Deku then opened the door. Welcome home, Master. Would you like dinner? Or a bath? Or do you want me, Jack asked. Deku then picked up Jack and started kissing her as he took her to bed. End of chapter 44.